Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As you guys know, it is my custom to welcome our guests and honor them, pay homage to them, because I know they're coming with several things that I deem very, very expensive. That is their time. Laura, thank you for coming and share some of this beautiful commodity. It is a precious commodity. Many of us misuse it. Many of us haven't learned to value her, to love her, to respect her, and honor her. And I want to honor you that you are here to share some of that precious commodity with us. The other is the journey. The journey created you. It created this powerful being that we are going to sit and be in the presence of, that we may obtain some wisdom, some insight, some knowledge, so that we ourselves can become. And we want to welcome her so that she can share all of these with us here at Threads of Enlightenment. Introduce yourself, tell the people, how do you serve mankind? They know I love asking this question and hearing the wonderful results from our guests. So how do you serve?
Yes. So I serve by assisting people to reawaken, to remember their divinity and really their, what I call their sixth density consciousness, which is unity consciousness, the remembrance that we are all one, and that beautiful equilibrium that happens when we are in both the feminine and the masculine and the child. So I teach a lot of the law of three, which is inside of the law of one, and that divine Trinity. And I teach people and I assist them to embody these teachings. And I am also, one of my greatest gifts is I am an activator and facilitator of Kundalini Shakti. So that was a gift that just is simply something that I have the capacity to do and I share with others.
That's powerful. I am familiar with some of that. I spent some time in an ashram several years, and Majai was our guru at the time, and so we had those conversations, her and I, many times. So one of the customs that we have is to go back. We like to, I mentioned on the onset of the conversation, that have entered into the body of our mom, and we are programmed from the outside. Talk to us about your family. What was that unit like? Because we stay there for a few years before we embark on our own personal journey, if you will. What was your unit like that we call a family?
Yes, absolutely. So I have my parents who have a great, loving relationship. They're still together. And then I have one older sibling, my brother. And the interesting thing, the first thing that came to my awareness when you asked that question was, I actually always felt like an alien. I always felt like an outsider in my family. And they would even joke about it, like, oh, you must be an alien. Because a lot of the things that I kind of did and took on, even as a child, were very different than them.
Yeah.
And so it was a joke, but it was really how I felt and largely experienced my family.
Wow. As an alien, what were some of those things that you did differently than the non-alien entities that were living here on this planet?
Yeah, I saw the world very differently. Again, even as a child, they would say something about an experience and it didn't resonate with me. And I would, say something different that, they were kind of like, okay, that's an interesting way to see the world. And I was raised, I would say, very, very loosely Catholic, because when I was a child, my mother was Catholic. My father wasn't really religiously oriented. And we started going to church, and then I had some Sunday school, but then it dropped off. But even that, as a very young child, I remember listening to that and thinking, wow, like none of that resonates with me. I didn't obviously have that word as a young child, but
Yeah.
it just didn't resonate. The teachings, nothing that they said to me resonated. So I'd say that was one of them, was kind of the perception of my reality and how I saw my reality. I was also very, very largely tuned into animals and
Mm-hmm.
nature. And so I loved animals. All the animals that we owned were mine because I was insistent on having them.
Yeah.
And I would spend a lot of time with my animals and out in nature. And,
Yeah.
neither one of my mother grew up on a cattle ranch, but for her, like dogs were working dogs, they weren't pets, horses
Mm-hmm.
were working animals. Like it was all in this working structure. And, my dad loved animals, but it wasn't like this obsession in any way, shape, or form. And my brother wasn't even really that interested. So
Yeah.
I had this really, really deep connection to animals and nature. And we lived on a big property that also backed BLM land. So I
Yeah.
had just
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of acres of
Acres.
forest to
Yeah.
play in. And I would just spend so much time with myself
Yeah.
and my dog and my horse and my cat in nature, just
Yeah.
being there by myself. And to me, that was like, I could have just spent my whole life there. Um, and then, as later as, kind of in middle school and going into high school, I was very, very intellectually driven as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas again, my family, not to say they're not intellects, but they didn't go to college. It wasn't part of like who they were. I was
Yeah.
very, very just intellectually driven, school driven. I love to learn. It's one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite things to do, is just to bring in information and process it through my body and then apply it to my experience and kind of see,
Yeah.
where it fits
Where
in.
it goes. Yeah.
Um, so I was very, very intellectual and very high learner. And I also, this is kind of a funny thing, but like I loved to work out. I really
Mm-hmm.
loved to apply myself.
Yeah.
Um, and they were all none of my family has ever worked out, not a day in their life, and they were always
Yeah.
like, and I started working out when I was like 14 years old, every single
Yeah.
day. And they
Wow.
were just kind of like, who are you? Like, where did you get that? Where did that come from? So yeah, just several different aspects there. And then when I was 19, I left the country by myself and traveled and actually traveled the world, became a scuba diving instructor. And
Yeah.
my dad is very nomadic, and they've been, a little bit international, but that was very out of the box as well for my family.
Yeah. What you were as a young kid, you are hanging out with some of the best teachers on the planet.
Yes.
Nature is one, animal is the other. Will help us to tap into aspects of ourselves that we are not aware of. There are a lot of guidance within nature as one begins to become an observer, which is going to be important in your journey later on. So here you are having these interactions with some of the most powerful teacher, and then you are about to now walk into another teacher that I think is very powerful, and everyone in this life ought to experience that, and that is traveling. What made you think of that? What incident happened in your life that says, I want to travel?
Yeah, it's quite a story because, again, I was always very intellectually driven. I was college driven
Hmm.
because I just, I felt like that was the next step. I was going to do it. And I was, always just pointed in that direction. And then I kind of got to, I graduated early from high school. I kind of got to my junior, senior year, and I actually had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I felt very lost. And I was working at the time. Again, I always worked. And I, just kind of like floating. I have a very open crown and an Anja center, and everybody was talking about computer programming. This was in 1999.
Yeah.
And, it was like the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, computer programming. Yeah, that's what I'll do. Right.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go to this school. I'm going to become a computer programmer. And at the time I was working in this board shop, skateboard, surfboard, skateboard shop. And, there was nothing in my life really about like computer programming. And my mom was like, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. And, I, this is the first time in my experience. I had a lot of beings that I would speak to when I was younger. I saw angels and I saw beings and I would speak to them. But this is the first experience I very much became aware of my higher self, because what happened was I went to take the SAT test. And again, I had straight A's. Like school was very easy for me. And I failed the test by 10 points and took it again and failed the test by 10 points and took it again, studied I was studying it, failed it again. And that third time I came home and I just collapsed on the floor and I was crying. And my mom said, "Are you sure that this is what you want to do?" And my higher self just like overtook my mouth. And out of my mouth came, "No, I want to travel." And I tell you, Ken, I had never really thought about it.
Wow.
I had never really thought about traveling. There had been people coming in, talking about Australia, talking about Fiji, talking about these places. And I'd be like, "Oh, that's so beautiful." So there'd been an impression, but I hadn't been like, "Wow, I would love to travel." And it just came out of my mouth. And I expected my mother to say, "Oh, no, you're going to college." And she didn't. She said, "Yes, do that. You're young. Now is the time. Do that." And I was like, "Okay, that's what I'm going to do." And I kind of think my mom didn't, even though I've always done everything that I have said I'm going to do, I kind of think she said it, but didn't really think about the whole, process that was engaged because, I got on a plane at 19 years of age. I had never been on a plane. I'd never been out of the country. And I flew across the world to Fiji by myself. And, I lived abroad by myself.
Why did you pick Fiji?
Well, so I did have friends there. And so I spent a couple of months with friends. And the beautiful thing was, another thing that I didn't even know about Fiji was, again, this was in 1999, was when I left. And Fiji is the first place to turn 2000. So I got to experience that without planning on experiencing that.
That's awesome. I love where it came from. It was an internal decision, and more of a subconscious decision than it was a conscious decision, which is really kind of cool, because I tell people that's where we are supposed to be living from, the subconscious. I always try to educate my my listeners about listening and hearing. And I remember I came out of the church and I remember that Jesus said this thing, "Those who have ears, let them hear," and it bothered me. And so I wanted to get clarity on what did he mean by that. So I meditated on that for several months. And one day I got the clarity of it. The body is designed to listen. The soul is designed to hear. And when he hears it, it's a reality. So this girl, 19 years old, from her soul says, "I am going to travel." That means that there's some stuff going to be waiting there for you. What was some of those things as you embark on that journey? You got there, you got the honor of seeing the 2000 and before everyone else, all of that. What spiritually was waiting for your arrival as you got there?
It definitely was it was a very big step in my life. And just listening to that message that came out of my mouth, listening to it and taking action on it. It was amazing how easy it all came. I mean, I got 2 more jobs, right? I was working like 16-hour days, just banking money and getting ready to leave. And all of it just felt so easeful and so right. And my friends were just like, "Are you crazy? Like, you're doing this by yourself?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, because after I left Fiji, I was 100% by myself. I went to Australia after that. I knew nobody. I didn't know where I was going. I just picked a plot and went there. And the level of like connection to myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just the truth that I can really accomplish whatever feels in alignment for me. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
a massive lesson for me. And how many times through my process I've looked back on that and reminded myself of that and said, see, you did it then, you can do it again, right?
yeah,
Like there's nothing that if you just take one step at a time and follow through, if it really feels in alignment, you will create it. You
yeah,
will move through it. And you know, on top of just doing it all by myself and really creating that relationship with myself, uh, becoming a scuba diving instructor was
yeah.
huge because I mean, here I am, I'm a teacher. You know, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've been a teacher my whole life. I used to teach my stuffed animals. I used to teach, you know, I had
Yeah.
friends who'd come over who didn't have horses. I would teach them everything about horses, how to tack them up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They never asked to be taught. I just taught, you're going to learn. I'm going to teach you. You're my student. um, so diving gave me the opportunity to be a teacher. And then I
Yeah,
became a teacher of teachers. And then, of course, I was, you know, I was just, again, just every day I would submerge myself in the South Pacific, which, as you know,
yeah,
is a glorious, glorious space. And,
yeah,
you know, I would just be down there in this completely different realm of
yeah,
reality, looking at these beautiful creatures, listening to the sound of my breath. You know, I became
yeah,
hyper
yeah.
aware of my breathing and my breath.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many intricacies in the diving and the teaching of diving
Yeah.
that I use today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the breath is powerful, a lesson to learn about the breath. I suggest those that are listening, just find if you have to start with yoga, there are many different modalities when it comes to teaching about the breath. There are different types. And so do some research and see what your inner, your soul is pulling you towards and go that route because that's where you ought to be. Just don't do it just to do it. Allow your soul, your inner, your subconscious individual to guide you. And that's what the journey is about, making that switch from the natural to the supernatural, and just begin to practice little things like that, and you'll begin to see the reward. So here you are, you're hanging out in the culture, and that culture has a different mindset than Western civilization. How did their mindset, and we talk, it's in the form of their different religious beliefs and all of these different things. How did their mindset begin? And again, you're dealing with the diving aspect, which also teaches you certain type of mindset. What was happening to this young woman with all of that information, that data coming in from all the different sources as she is there in that space?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is, you know, just a lot of different perspectives, right? Because
Yeah.
I was very open-minded and I didn't really feel any judgment towards anybody. And, you know, I spent a lot of time in Malaysia and Indonesia and
Yeah.
in Muslim cultures, and I was honestly just fascinated. And
Yeah.
I just remember observing and being curious and fascinated at their particular way of life. I never felt any judgment towards it. Um, and I just really feel like I was just receiving and just drawing in. I was just like a sponge, just
Yeah.
receiving all these different perspectives, you know. And then Thailand was another place I spent a lot of time in with, you know, which is another very different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really just soaked it all up. One of the
Yeah.
things I loved, I remember very specifically in Thailand, is they have this water festival every year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know,
Sangkuran. Yeah.
it's just this like amazing, like they're shooting water at everybody. I remember, you know, somebody had their window down in their car and people were shooting water into their car.
Yeah.
And I
I've
mean,
seen
there's just water everywhere. And
it.
nobody is getting upset. You
No.
know, everybody is like smiling from ear to ear, having so
Mm-hmm.
much fun. And then I remember watching this old Thai woman walk down the street, and it was like she had a bubble around her. Like she did not
Yeah.
get touched. There was so much honor and respect. Like she
Yeah.
could, she had like her little walker or something. I can't remember, but she was like moving very slowly, and like,
Yeah.
and it was just like, no, she's safe. Meanwhile, you're getting dumped on with bucket. It was just like the
Yeah.
most beautiful thing I had ever, like the freedom and the joy, and like, this
Yeah.
isn't personal. Like I'm not hitting you with water because
Yeah.
I, want to hurt you. It's just, we're just
Mm-hmm.
having fun. There's such a
Celebration. Yeah.
childish essence to it that I will never forget.
Yeah, it is. I've had several since I'm here living in Thailand, and my first very memorable because I didn't know anything about it, and I was just driving, heading out to go do an errand. Next thing I know, I had to stop at the corner to make a turn, and I see all these people with water, and the next thing I know, I'm wet, and I'm looking at people going, okay, all right. I must be walking into, and I didn't know about, I didn't pay attention. I was in my little bubble. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And sure enough, when you made that right, all hell broke loose. And then I realized, okay, I'm in the middle of something special. And you just have to be in there and
Mhm.
enjoy it because that's what they're doing. It's just such a special holiday for them. And I love the terminologies that you're using. It is the hallmarks of personal development, openness, um, not being judgmental. I've had a conversation with a few people a few hours ago, and I've been learning something in my journey that I'm seeing two different worlds, two different kingdoms, if you will. And one is governed by judgment. Everyone is judging another individual. And the other is into becoming, uh, they are open, they are eager to learn. And those are those type of people I love to hang around with and enjoy because they are going somewhere. And I'll give you an example. I hadn't gone into a club in a long time, and I went to Copenhagen, sister island by me, to visit a friend. And he invited me in there, and I went in there just to hang out for a few minutes. And I hadn't danced in a long time. I'm like, I'm gonna hit the floor, so I'm dancing. And there was this elderly gentleman just in the corner in his own world. It was so beautiful to watch because he's moving at a different beat, but he is in his zone. And these young kids uh, are started judging him and started calling him, saying all kinds of stuff. And it kind of irritated my being. And I stopped them and I said, take a look at him. But the man's eyes are closed. Alara, his eyes are just, he's in his zone. I said, look how beautiful that is. I said, now, why would you want to judge that? And they looked at me, and I said, can you see the beauty in it? And the guy had no knowledge of what I was talking about. And I'm learning that about these two kingdoms that exist as one is moving in their journey. And and I began to understand why the sages left and would go into the mountains and the forests and all the places because of that judgmental energy is draining. And so here, this young girl is just drinking up all of the different perception, the different belief system, and she is being affected because she was aware of the spiritualness of the individual at a young age. How deep did it start to excavate? How deep did it start to go? Because when you are exposed to it, it's never on the surface. It's always going deeper inside you. What did you begin to notice as you have those quiet moments and having all this data coming at you and this powerful young woman? is dancing amongst all of that information? What was she doing to herself? How was she communicating with herself?
It's a really beautiful question. To me, it comes through as, there's no right or wrong way to do a single thing.
Yeah.
And it was ironic because I had, been called an alien in my family. And here I was at the minority, largely, especially in places like Southeast Asia and Australia, because there's a lot more Europeans there than there are Americans.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't feel like an alien at all, and just that like even watching the Europeans, because I had so many different influences through the tourists and the locals of different ways of doing things and what foods they like, and just how they interact with each other and their body language and the words that they use. And it was just really beautiful. It's just all of the different ways that we are human and we get to express to each other. And none of it felt, that there was one way or this was the way it had to be. It just felt like this plethora of colors on a canvas.
Yeah. That is awesome, isn't it? When you get a chance to dance amongst that and enjoy the exchange of energy, wisdom, knowledge, insight as you are mingling, if you will, within all the different cultures and so forth. So as she's moving through her life, this girl, she is getting a chance to move. Where did it take you, and why did you head back to the States? What was it that was happening with her that will have her now go back home, if you will?
Yeah, interesting because, I've learned to never say never because everything I'd said that I would never do, I've done. So that is no longer a part of my vocabulary. I said I would never live in the States again. And I knew very well that diving was not going to be a long-term career for me. It just didn't resonate as that is what I would do. It was temporary. And I just hit the point that I was like, I'm done, I'm done with diving. And kind of went to Europe and kind of was feeling around there. And there wasn't much that I could tap into just yet as far as what I could do as for work there. So I came back to the US and I was like, I'll establish something here, and quickly, left the US because I came back to San Diego and was kind of lost. Basically, I was lost. I was kind of in that point of like, who am I? What do I want to do? And it was playing around in hospitality and like, none of this is me, Went to Costa Rica, hospitality, got the hit to move to Maui. So I moved to Maui, went into hospitality there. And I'm all this while, this is only a very short couple of years. I moved a lot. This is like a span of 3 years. There's something else, there's something else here. And when I was in Maui, the hit came to work with horses. And I had grown up, riding horses. Had they been out of my life for a long time. And as you said, horses have been my primary teacher in life. I mean, in so many different ways. They have taught me. I mean, my heart just always swells when I speak about this because they are so dear to who I am as a human, as a teacher, as a healer. And so as it does when we're aligned, I even had my landlord say, you're not going to find a job in horses. And I immediately found a job in horses. And that led to the woman that I was working for. I was just taking care of horses and riding and training her horses. She had a woman that would come out who was Australian but lived in California. And she would come out and do body work on the horses. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I want to do that. And so I went to college in England to become an animal physical therapist and started doing physical therapy to the horses. Oh, boy. I mean, that took me into a whole nother realm because before I knew it, the horses were teaching me about my energy. Angels and beings were showing back up again and teaching me about how to use my energy to heal the horses. And I was calling myself a physical therapist, but I was doing so much energy healing on them. And then they started communicating to me, and then all of a sudden I'm an animal communicator, and it just was like unraveling itself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I hope you guys heard or the transition would happen, that she's manifesting things as she's moving through. People will always tell you you're not going to get a job and whatever, but once you've made, and I keep telling you if you're listening, once you've made that internal decision with that subconscious individual, uh, energy begins to, what every human being is and are, they're energetic beings housed inside a body. And so once you've made your decision, it will cause what you have just released to manifest, regardless of what everyone says. And that's why I don't pay attention to people when it comes to certain things. When I know that alignment has taken place and I've released those words, it is power. It is. I am working and moving and manifesting in my position as a creator. And I've been educating my audience that we are all creators, and we, from time to time, will tap into it as individuals walking through life. But when one becomes aware of themselves as a creator, they know that they can create every single day, and they're not tapping into it, they're living from it. And that is where you are trying to get to. So here you are, you heard the call. I love that. I heard the call. And everything starts to fall in place. You begin to grow. You begin to become aware. You begin to reconnect with the spiritual realm. And you are learning some deep truth as all of these things are happening around you. You are engaging with others, the horses and whatever. But this girl has been traveling for 3 years, and she just found her place. She went to school and so forth. She did all the study, took all this stuff. With all of this happening to you, you lay down, no horses around. What are you thinking?
I remember feeling really, really grateful
Yeah,
because they came back into my life. The horses came back into my life. I get
yeah.
so emotional
You can
because I
see
lived
it.
so long without them, and I had,
Yeah,
wanted one since I was a very little girl. So
yeah,
them coming back into my life was just like, and so profoundly, it wasn't
yeah,
just having a horse. Not that that's not profound. I don't want to, say that, but the way that they were showing me and teaching me again, it was like,
yeah,
you're back here. You're teaching
yeah,
me again. Like, I was so honored and grateful to be once again the student of their wisdom.
yeah. As you're gaining the wisdom, how did you begin to interact with the non-aliens? The people outside um, outside of you, your neighbors, your friends, those that are not within the field and the arena of the horses where you're at, the outsiders. How did you react to them, and how did they react to you?
Yeah, I've been alone a lot in my life. I mean, at the time I got married in Maui. But, uh, you know, I haven't always had like a big group of friends. I've
Yeah.
always just felt like an outsider. And so I think that's why I've always loved the animals as my
Mm-hmm.
solstice of
Yeah.
being able to just be me with them. And through that time, particularly in the beginning of it, I just kind of went further into myself and further
Yeah.
in with the horses, and didn't like I had very few friends on Maui. It was like I loved my work, that's what I did, and then I had my partner, I had my own horses. When I got
Yeah.
off working with horses, I would go home and be with my own horse. It was just like I just don't care. I don't care
Yeah.
about the outside world right now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to soak up this space. That changed as I moved
Yeah.
into more working when we left Maui, and I had my business as animal physical therapist, and I was still pretty enclosed then. But then then I became an animal communicator. So that was like the next step.
Yeah.
And which was really great because animal physical therapy is very, very physically challenging. I mean, I
Yeah,
was very, very
demanding.
buff.
Yeah.
But that's, you can only do that for a period of time. I got pregnant twice. I had to stop working during those pregnancies. It's limited, right? And with the animal communication, I was doing it over the phone, and I wasn't really with the animals. I was communicating with the animals, but I was having a conversation with people again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really bringing it back around to the people.
Yeah.
And, basically that opened up a whole nother can of worms where that led to another side of it. But I will say through all of this, and I had, spiritual awakenings through that as well. There was definitely a draw in. And then there was a start to unravel out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always the case. That is what his life is all about. It's inward. And once you have made the connection, if you will, the only only place left is for it to show itself. And so it's this beautiful dance I welcome all of you into this dance. You will love it. It will change you. It will hug you. It will hold you, and it will kick your ass. So here you are. I'm transitioning, going towards the Kundalini experience, because that is a powerful, powerful experience that one encounters. And some people, I've read where some people that didn't know how to manage that power can have some serious injuries, if you will, that will manifest sometimes. So it's a powerful experience to have. So here is this woman. She has her children, she has her family. And how did this period of your life, you're communicating with people, and that's always a challenge, dealing with those that are judgmental. So how did you begin to navigate towards this powerful experience, and what was the incident that caused that arrival of that experience in your life?
Yeah. So many years before all of this, I had started studying Ashtanga yoga. It was something that fell into my lap. It was never something that I was seeking. My neighbor
Mm-hmm.
taught it to me, and I really learned again the breath.
The
And
breath. Yeah.
what was so beautiful about it was she taught it to me, and then I took it on as my own practice because Ashtanga is a set series.
Mm-hmm.
And I just intuitively really focused on my breath. And I
Yeah.
allowed my breath to take me through the postures rather than my
Yeah.
mind. And it was so tremendous because I didn't know at the time, but I was really in a meditative state because I would be
Mm-hmm.
no thought and I would just be following my breath really
Yeah.
beautifully. So I want to say I started meditating back in like 2005 through that practice.
Yeah.
And I was doing Ashtanga all the way through there. And then somewhere along the way, I, very soon, right before my Kundalini awakening, I started to meditate. So I was just meditating on my chakras. And I knew what Kundalini was, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know anything really about it. I just kind of
Yeah.
heard of it. It was very
Yeah.
far away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's about it. I was tapping into my chakra system every single day. I was woken up at 3 a.m. by my higher self, get out of bed, go meditate.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd go sit, and it was such a beautiful time. I
Yep.
loved it so much,
Yeah.
And so one day I get in my car and I'm going to go work on some horses. And I'm driving down the road, and my higher self comes in and says, I want you to Om 3 times. And again, oming was like, I had heard of it. I knew what it was. I didn't practice it, but I was like, okay, sure. So I took a nice deep breath. Oh, all the way to the end of my breath 3 times. At the end of that third breath, driving my car, an energy shot through my body. I literally felt it start from very much my root all the way through out my crown. And I went into full body orgasm.
Yeah.
luckily I was on a back road, so I pulled the car over and just kind of sat with this like, wow, just waves and waves of bliss moving through my body. And, I had no idea what was going on, right? And the interesting thing is I had never had a full body orgasm sexually.
Yeah.
And sexually, I actually really struggled to orgasm. I
Yeah.
could, but I had to really think about it. And it was all about, it was very mental.
Yeah.
So this was really out of the box for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it lasted for a couple of minutes. And then it's, the waves of bliss subsided. And I was just in this radical state of bliss, of ecstasy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, what just happened to me? And, I had to, I was going to work. So got back on the road and, just like cranked up the music. I could barely sit still. And I was dancing. Driving down the freeway, I was like waving at everybody. Like I was just like, wow, life is amazing, And that lasted all day long. And then it kind of petered off.
Yeah.
And again, I had no idea what happened to me. And then, then it was a very interesting journey because what happened, and I'm sure you're aware of this, Ken, but for the audience, the coiled serpent released and that powerful energy of creation, which is also a very healing energy, as she shot through my body, she opened me up.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had always said, I thought to myself, I'm such a emotionally stable individual. And really what I was actually emotionally shut down.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was shut down in a lot of ways. I was shut down sexually. I was shut down expressionally. I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah.
So I started to experience all of these just crazy emotions that had been shoved down. And, 1 minute I would be laughing kind of hysterically, and the next minute I'd be raging, screaming my head off, just raging, my young son just not really knowing what was going on. And then I'd like collapse and start weeping and like feeling all this grief moving through my body. And, I asked my higher self more than once, am I going crazy?
Yeah.
And, my higher self said, just keep breathing and allowing. Breathe and allow. And I really am so grateful that I had that connection to my higher self because, as you said, that power, if we're not understanding how to use it, it can lead to psychosis, right? Because of that experience is so radical. And I feel like what kept me anchored was that my higher self was there and just kept saying, breathe, allow. That was the only information I got was breathe and allow. It wasn't like, this is what's happening to you. You're good. You're safe. Breathe and allow. And it took about 5 months where it started to relax and I started to reach equilibrium again. And that's when a book, of course, very beautifully, spontaneously, magically fell into my lap called Kundalini Awakening. And the first chapter was about spontaneous Kundalini Awakening. And I just nailed it on the head.
It's a great book, great read. Anyone that wants to read something very powerful, read that book. I've read it a couple of times. You guys, I always tell people to pay attention, become hearers, learn to transition from listening to hearers. Hearers, they will do something with the information. It'll change their life. It'll be deposited, and it will cause we call it in Christendom, faith without works is dead. You will take the corresponding actions and it'll change your life. A couple of tools that she brought into her life that are very powerful. Meditation saved my life personally. I know the power of meditation. The breath. You guys who have been listening to this podcast, I keep telling you the breath is the bridge between the natural and the supernatural. When you learn how to harness the breath, you will go in, you will come out, you'll know, and you will be in when the breath escorts you in. And when in your meditation, I also get up at 3 in the morning and do the same as you. it takes you in, guys. And there's sometimes that when it takes you in, that you will not be able to come out for a time. And you just have to breathe and allow, breathe and allow. You're in good hands. You're in your hand of you. You got you. So don't allow all of those thoughts that will come into your mind, into your natural mind. Your subconscious man got you, holding you and allowing you to experience what is necessary. Because once you come out with that experience, he will teach you things from there. Because it's important that you get that, because you are going to have to become a servant from there. So here you are. You had your experience, and that is a powerful, like, I know, guys, you're listening, men can have it too. And you have to learn how to utilize the breath with meditation and breathing, and you will be there. So you've got this wonderful experience, and now you're standing there, all this energy, all this knowledge, and you are released now, several months down. What do you do with all of that good stuff?
Well, yes. I mean, to say that it changed my life it
Yeah.
was in another one of those very pivotal points, similar to when I left the country. What it showed me was the radical, polarity is such a beautiful teacher, isn't it? Because it allows us to see, massive difference in frequency. And that's beautiful, right? Because it shows us what is different in the same expression of the one.
Yeah.
And what it showed me was this version of me who had become very shut down and numb. And then what was possible, like this ecstatic self was possible. And I knew I couldn't go back. I knew that my life that I was living wasn't serving me. I had a husband at the time, and we had a wonderful relationship. Like, we are great team members. Like, to this day, we still have a beautiful relationship because we work really well as a team. But there was so much that there wasn't resonating there, and I knew I would have to leave that relationship. From the outside, it looked perfect. There was no fighting. We were comfortable financially. It was one of those blows to the external reality where my family and friends and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" Especially my family. They gave me a really hard time about it. Breaking up a family for what? What's wrong? There's nothing really wrong, And it's like, well, there is. It's here with me, and I have to go on another journey, right? And it's imperative to my being that I do this. And so I got a divorce, and I left a real state of comfort. I was very comfortable, right? And shut down. And brought myself totally outside of my comfort zone. At that time, I was, again, self-employed. I had been a mother for many years, so my business wasn't super established. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I have to go down this road. And and again, I leaned on that 19-year-old version of me. Right. Like, I did it then, I can do it now. I trust in these. It always, when I get to those points in my life, there's often times where I get intuitive hits and things they're smaller, and there's the really big ones. And that's where I always feel like there's just this wave of energy that's simultaneously picking me up and pushing me forward at the same time. And sure, I could try to go a different direction, but there's a part of me that just simply knows that that's actually going to be much harder than just letting the wave take me, right? Like, just riding the wave. So even though I was scared and, just really like, I don't even know how this is going to work out. Like, this makes no sense. My mind is going off on me. My mind is like tearing me apart at every angle. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? How are you going to do this? Your business isn't there yet. But my heart and my soul was just like, it doesn't matter. I have to do this. So I did it, and went on a whole nother journey of self-discovery through that process.
Yeah, it is necessary for you to walk into your blessing. It is necessary. It is the switch between the natural, as you heard, every thought is telling her this and that, and the subconscious. We call it the heart. You have to make that switch. And now what you're doing basically is relinquishing control from one to the other. And because the heart is not something that we're familiar with, no one has ever told us or trained us and tell us that we have to be listening to this thing inside of us that's just pulling us in one direction. In fact, they're telling us, no, you need, the mind is telling you what's wrong with you. You're going against all of the programming that we have been programming you for so many years. You're going out of your comfort. I got no money. These are all the things that will hold you. And I tell people sometimes the job is one of the last things that will keep you from your dream. And it is a way by which they are bribing you to stay in the fold. And sometimes you have to learn to trust you. This conversation we're talking about is all about you, trusting you to take care of you. And once you allow that transition to take place, there is some apprehension, nervousness. I mean, let's get real. Those are the things that are there. But there's this peace that amongst all of this stuff, and the whirlwind is going to be spinning all around you. And you're going to be comfortable looking at it going, oh, okay, this is the direction that I need to go, and you'll be fine. So here you are, you stepped out, you came out of your comfort zone. Many people prefer to stay there. When you stepped out, as we talk about the whirlwinds and all those things now, because you're about to create again, you're about to create something different and something more powerful. And I tell people that creation is always darkness first and then light. Talk to us as you stepped out of your darkness, if you will, and you began to speak into the chaos to bring out what you want. From my studies in the Bible, God looked out and he said, I need light. And he said, let there be light. He's very specific in what he wanted. And that came. And then when he needed something else, he's very specific with what he wanted, and that manifests. So talk to us as you are now going to become your creator. As you begin to speak, what did you see in the darkness? And what did you begin to call into your existence?
It's really funny what comes through, because right before, I think it was before, I can't remember if it was before the Kundalini awakening or not, but the new Wonder Woman came out, right?
Yeah.
And I've always resonated with superheroes. I really, since there's something about that, it's like, no, we're all that. Like, it's not like these special beings that exist. It lights me up in this way of like, I have those gifts,
Yeah.
And I was, and I remember having this conversation with, he was my husband at the time. I was like, I got to go. There's something happening within me. And he even said, like, are you going to leave me and the boys behind? And I was like, no, and then not that I left my boys, because I didn't, but I left him behind. And not really, that's not really fair to say, but just this unraveling again of our supernatural selves, right? That yes, we are human, but as we connect to these deeper truths, there are supernatural gifts that come through us.
Yeah.
And I started to witness that about myself and started to see the magic of my own being. And it was still kind of like it comes up as Harry Potter. Sometimes when I'd wave my wand, it would be beautiful, and sometimes it would kind of
Yeah.
sputter and nothing would happen, right? Like I was still learning, and I still am learning. We're always learning.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
learning. Yeah.
but that's what comes through when you ask that question. And when I was a
Yeah.
very little girl, there were two things that I was insistent that I could move things with my mind. I just
Yeah.
thought it was something I could do. This was when I was
Yeah.
very like 6 and below. And I would just stare at an object and I would just focus on it. And I'd be like, okay, I'll move it. And it wouldn't move. And I'd be like, what? You know, like what? That thing is supposed to move. Like I can move it with my mind.
Yeah.
And, and then the second thing I thought is I could go into dreamland and I would have lucid dreams, and I loved candy. And I would just be like, okay, great. I can bring this candy bar back.
Mm-hmm.
And I was insistent that if I just focused on it and just set the intention and focused, I could bring it from dreamland, and I would
Yeah.
wake up and it would be there on my bedside table,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. Right. But I'm still sure that that's part of who I am. And
Yeah.
my higher self ensures me that one day those are things that I'm going to be experiencing in this life,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, those are kind of like big gifts, right? But there's so many different ways that these gifts start coming out, right? Like my massive empathic ability, my very, very psychic and massively intuitive ability. I have a great depth of wisdom that I honestly don't even know where it comes from. Stuff just comes to me that's very wisdom based, that just comes out of my mouth, And then, of course, the Kundalini and my availability to this very powerful energy moving through my body, and how I can bring that forth into assisting others as well. So all of that was coming and being revealed to me.
Yeah, and as you now, because I believe those gifts are always residing in us, we came with them, that's who we are. And now, as you begin to walk into the ultimate prize, as I tell you, that we get to experience as individuals, once we have gone through our journey, and the last benchmark that we have to go is that surrendering from the natural to the supernatural. And then we began to be escort into our assignment, if you will, that we are going to now become the aid, the guides to others to help them to come into self. When that began to materialize in your thoughts, how did it begin to knock on you? What conversation had caused that knocking? And then once it resides, what steps did you begin to take to make it a reality?
It was all felt, and again, with the horses were really guiding me as far as my gifts, because they were showing me how to utilize my energy to heal them. And again, the beings were arising and showing up and teaching me. And the next thing, I was an animal communicator. And then next thing I know, I'm in animal communication. And one day my higher self comes to me and just says, you're going to start working with people directly.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not. And from that day forward, all the calls that I got for people hiring me as an animal communicator, all the information was on them. Like I could not get. It was like all this energy was streaming in, like all of their things that are creating the issue with their animal, right? But I was like, okay, great, like over here, and it was like, like, no, we're talking about and I was like, oh my God, it's like I have to say to people, like, I am so sorry, but I know you called about your dog. However, this is all about you, And so I had to very quickly get out of that realm of animal communication and just open it up as per humans, right? Because it didn't. Not everybody was so open to that information. It was surprising how many were, but a lot of people were like, I don't want you to dive into my energy. That's very intrusive. I called you about my dog. So I wanted to be really sure that what I was presenting was what people were receiving, right? So that was the next shift, and how that all took on. But what I feel really called to speak about is, in this whole process, it wasn't, this is coming through as like really just a beautiful journey, right? Which it's
It's
beyond
never
beautiful.
beautiful
It's
journey.
beyond beautiful.
Yeah,
And there was so much challenge, right? And
yeah.
I love challenge, but the depths of myself that were brought into light, my
Hmm.
arrogance and, just how I was so shut down that I was using my arrogance as a way to protect myself, right?
Yeah.
And really seeing my belief patterns and structures that I needed to see to shift them, right? And sometimes it's like, wow, that's a really big pill to swallow. So
Yeah.
you're telling me that I hate myself, that I'm arrogant, that I lie, that it's like, where does the list stop? And that's a good thing. Like, okay, this is part of the process.
Yeah.
Let me swallow that first,
Yeah.
right? Let me just
Yeah.
breathe into that, like, truth of
Yeah.
the programming and the not me
Hmm.
that I have taken on as identity, so
Yeah.
that then I can, establish the me. And, I was sexually traumatized as a child by my grandfather, who's a very close being to me, and then multiple times after that by different beings. And, there was a deep level of shame and unworthiness
Yeah.
that I had to face. And, hours spent in meditation,
Yeah.
hours spent in meditation, being willing to be shown, the pain
Yeah.
that was held in my body
Yeah.
and the wounding that was held in my body. And, when we're willing to see that and face it and just really
Hmm.
be open arms to it, right? Like, I open my arms to the me, right, that is wounded.
Yeah.
It's like it is really the finding of ourself.
Yeah.
Because it is the polarity, right? It is the divinity holding the space for the wounded and the humanness, and just what really transpires. And so I just say that to the listeners because it's such a journey of the willingness to see yourself. But
Yeah.
when you're willing to see all of that, you're also willing to see the truth.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's where your power lies. That's where you learn to love. That's where you learn to forgive. That's where you learn to let go of shame. Shame was a good friend of mine. We were buddies. And one day I had to um, relinquish that relationship. And I remember I was such a alien. I invited them to lunch, Alara. I invited
Hmm.
shame and all of those things that I felt. I invited them to dinner in my house. And I said, we need to have a conversation. And I remember starting out saying, I thank you for where you have brought me. And, but I no longer need your service at this time. And I remember having that conversation with myself. And I said, we must part ways. And we've never met again. I
Hmm.
never feel that aspect of part of me, which was a major, major part of my life,
Hmm.
the shame. And for me, at this level of my life, not ever again meeting him, I, is one of the great honors of my life. And so I invite all of you guys. Um, this is not easy, but it's the most rewarding thing you will ever do in your life. Is to have a conversation, to see you in your pain, to see you in your brokenness. You will cry. I cried. I was curled up in fetal position. I cried from the depths that you crying. I think, is a combination of your soul and your body and everything just crying. And once you get that release, because trauma is stored emotionally, and when you release that emotion, you're releasing that trauma. And then you began to stand up and began to love yourself, began to be empathetic, be patient, all of those things that you require and you want from a relationship, you will have it with you. And then you'll be able to become one of the most beautiful things you will ever see on this planet. And don't let anyone tell you differently. You are so precious that you're one of a kind. That when you die, your fingerprint goes, your voice, your industries are making billions on how unique you are. Learn to see yourself as you are. Look past that mirror and look in your eyes and say, I love you, even though you don't feel it. It has nothing to do with that. You will come and learn when you meet someone, when it takes you some time to fall in love. And it's the same way with yourself. When you say, I love you, one day you're going to stop in front of that mirror and it's going to be a little different when you look in your eyes in behind those walls and you see you looking at you and you have walked into this beautiful relationship of love. I challenge you to go there. So here you are. You have learned to love. You have faced your demons as yourself. The demons are all the stories and the less than thinking that we have accumulated through programming, through trauma. Those are our demons. You have faced them. You have quieted them. You are standing tall. Now, can you speak to that woman, that man, that is a little apprehensive in opening up that door to go visit that hurt child? Can you talk to that as to give them some hope, some tools, if you will, to help them to open it, even if it's gently, and then going into that place to have that conversation, that meeting that is the most powerful meeting they'll have in their life.
One of my most profound teachings that my higher self has taught me is the art of relaxation.
Yeah.
Which relaxation is different than rest. Relaxation is really of our total body and being, and you can actually be highly engaged and be deeply relaxed simultaneously. Yep. And I always say this is spiritual kung fu. If you think of the kung fu master, they are deeply at peace and calm, and they are deeply relaxed. And what that enables us is all of the information that exists in the moment, because there's all this information of potentiality in this moment right now. And as they are deeply relaxed, they can tune in and feel everything that is about to happen. Mm-hmm. Right. So what then becomes is if they, let's think of them in a fight, right? Because this is a great synonym. They know exactly when, something is coming at the right, something is coming at the left. Yep. And so they know exactly what to do. One action, right? Two actions maybe that are precise yet deeply profound and exact because they are relaxed. Yeah. So pain only exists in tension. Yeah. Pain does not exist in relaxation. My higher self has taken me into the depths of pain of humanity beyond my own personal pain. Yeah. He told me, relax, relax, soften, soften, relax. And my body just wanted to tense, Yeah. And my body, I just wanted out of it, right? Relax, breathe into your body. Yeah. Breathe into your body, relax, soften, soften. And when I would do that, I would hit bliss. And the energy would move through me. And so for the audience, it's about learning where we hold that tension. When you think of pain, when you think of the wound itself, you'll immediately tense up. It may be very subtle. It could be in the mental body, it could be in the emotional body, it could be in the physical body. But if you're willing to start to see where you're holding the tension, You can learn to let that tension go just by using the breath and literally relaxing. And, I'll sit in meditation and I'll just tell myself to let go and to relax. And I am totally relaxed. And I'll tell
Yeah.
myself to let go and to relax. And it's kind of a fun game. How relaxed can I get?
Yeah.
I don't feel any tension in my muscles. Let's just keep relaxing.
Yeah.
And your whole energetic field just expands and expands. And what that does is you're opening yourself up to, the higher concentrations of light within yourself. And so then the pain becomes this lesser value.
Mm-hmm.
You're holding that energy of light love and this profundity, and the pain becomes the tiny granular of sand. And when you're doing that, then to relax into that pain becomes very easy. And as you relax, it shifts.
Yeah.
As you relax, the energy moves. So learning to use the breath, learning to sit with your body, relax first and foremost the tension held in the physical, and then become curious with your breath, taking your breath deeper. How can I now relax my emotional body? You don't have to understand what that means.
Yeah.
Just become curious. Breathe into the body, relaxing the emotional body. I don't even know what that means, but I'm doing it. Now I'm going to relax the mental body.
Yeah.
Okay. Trusting that through your intention and through your breath and through just simply applying your thought, right, it will happen. And that energy will move so much easier through you. Then, from that state of relaxation, start to pull in, call in, right? Bring your awareness to perhaps a known wound, right?
Yeah.
Or call in your wounded self. And now bring in that version of you, that now small granular of sand on the big beach of consciousness that is you. Bring that in and stay in that relax. And it's okay if you tense initially, because you most likely will. And that's
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful learning of, oh, there's the tension.
Yep,
Okay,
there it
relax.
is.
Oh, there's the tension,
Yeah.
right? And if you've ever done that exercise where you tense all your muscles and then relax them and tense all your
Yeah.
muscles, and what it does is it releases the tension.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to like tense up and relax and tense up and
Yeah.
relax and get used to those, again, that polarity, right, of this is what tension feels like,
Yeah.
so therefore this is what relaxation feels like.
And guys, all of you that have been partaking of this conversation, I'm going to provide everything for you to have access. Some of you might not be asking, I want to know more about that. I have someone that I'm going to provide everything for you to have access to her so that she can guide you into more of that stuff, because more of that stuff is what you need to come out of where you're at and to change your perspective. It changes everything. When your perspective changes, everything comes with it. Your entire world will go with that change in perspective. And it's very tiny. And most people think it's a big lift. It is not. It is learning the tools that will help you make that lift. You don't lift a big giant rock with your hand. You get a crane, and the crane makes it a little easy. You just have to learn how to use that tool, which is the crane, to help you lift that big rock. So I have someone that has some tools for you that will help you move those things that you deem big rocks. And we're going to provide everything. This has been such a beautiful conversation, guys. It's just been a beautiful one. And so I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, sharing. I know there's so much more we didn't even go into. I know you had talked, and I've always been fascinated with Tesla 369. Uh, and how that is and all the different things and his mindset towards that. So we didn't even get, we'll come back and we'll talk on that, but I wanted to focus on the Kundalini part because I know the power that it is, and how it can change someone's life and bring them that freedom that they want, because it's happened to me. I've been privy to many other occasions of that, and I welcome all of you to come and experience it. I have a teacher, I have a guide, and she is here for you, to assist you. This is one of her passions, to help you see the greatness within you. There's nothing more sexy on this planet when someone sees who they are. It is beautiful. That transition from darkness to light is a position that a servant gets to witness, and it's an honorable place. And I know someone that can hold a space for you to make that transition, set yourself free, your family, and chase your dreams. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Such a spectacular conversation, Ken. You're an incredible host. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and I am honored having your presence and your energy with us here. Thank you so much.